How are we going for time? Do we need a coffee break? No, we don't. They didn't even be an hour. Taupo District Council draft annual plan report, which you have, which is only a draft. Would I put it here somewhere? And it's unaudited. I believe it's at the audit office now. Mr. Manhennett, do you want to speak to it, or yeah, the draft? Yeah.
Gareth and I are going to tag team.
Okay. So I'll open it up to councillors. Do you have any questions on the draft annual report? 12 to 13, please.
Just before you do, I guess I'll just make a comment that one is apologies, you only got it today. It's literally hot off the press. Secondly, you'll note that there are some matters or parts of it which aren't complete. And notably that's some of the numbers, the Mayor's report, Chief Executive Officer's report, etc. And that's again just because of the timing. You'll remember that this is an extra step in the process that you asked for in terms of looking at this before it went to audit, which is unusual. So hence it's not quite in its complete form, but I do believe it probably gives you a really good understanding of where it's heading and what the structure is going to be.
And if I can add to that, as far as the financials are concerned, which are with audit at the moment, and we will get the financials to the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting, the forecast that we gave you in the June council meeting is still pretty much in line. There's been some revaluations of assets and on buildings and land, which has affected the bottom line, but that's just an annual revaluation basis. So we're still going to finish the year with a loan book 17 million lower than what we budgeted, and our profit before the revaluation will still be about 6 million better than we originally budgeted for. So that's very much in line with what we indicated at the June council meeting.
Okay. Any questions from anybody?
Sorry.
Chief Executive Officer. Oh, sorry, Mike. Councillor.
Does that include the savings of OPEX too? In that?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's 6 million.
Total savings.
So there was about a couple of million in operational savings, and the rest was increased revenue from sale of assets. But
and the big one, our forest.
Yeah. But as we all understand that we're heading in a pretty positive direction if you can reduce your level of debt by 17 million in 1 year.
I think it's very, very commendable. Very commendable. Just a matter of clarity, under the new Local Government Act, the Chief Executive of the officers had to put out a report before an election. Pre-election report. Has that gone out?
Yes.
And is that the report that's going to be in here? No. A separate report. Okay, cool. Any further questions?
It's on our website.
Yep. For anybody that wants to access the pre-election report, it's on our website.
That's a new thing that government's brought in that has to be done prior to an election by any chief executive officer, so that anybody coming in knows exactly what they're coming into, rather than being surprised later. Anything further? It's going to be like that for. Okay. So, suggested resolution that council does not become a party to the appeal. Oh, hang on. That's the next one. That the unaudited Taupo District Council draft annual report 2012-2013 be received. I think it's also going to the audit committee, is it not?
The financials and anything else related to it, yes, we'll go to the audit committee.
Right, move with that. Move it, please. Move, Councillor Downard. Second, Councillor Johnson. All those in favour? Aye. 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 Thank you. Got ahead of myself here. This is the appeals to the Hawke's Bay Regional Council Regional Policy Statement Change 5. Who's going to talk about this? Kara or Gareth? Kara. Hi, Kara. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is relating to Change 5 to the Hawke's Bay Regional Council Policy Statement. And at our last agenda item, officers noted that Taupo District Council's submission points had been largely accepted in the decision to Change 5, and that there was no need at that time to appeal, but that we would keep a watching brief on the appeals that do come in if any affected our position on the submission points that we'd made. and there were no appeals on those submission points. So our recommendation is that there's no need to join as a party to those appeals.
Self-explanatory. No questions, no clarity. Mover.
I just ask what's your officer's view on where it's at the moment? Do you think it will go through, or?
I think the main appeal points were for parties that were very much focused on their own interests. So there was the Federated Farmers, there was a iwi group, Horticulture New Zealand. So they weren't really fundamental issues with that change, and that change was about sort of keeping up with the national policy statement. So, yeah.
Carry on. Did the Property Council poke their nose in?
As an appellant?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Were there many submissions for it?
So there were 4 appeals. I'm not sure how many overall submissions there were back at the time that people submitted on the change.
Councillor Henderson?
Just on a related matter, while on local government reorganisation submissions, the Property Council has produced a document about their ideas for reorganisation of the Waikato, which would be worthwhile getting hold of and having a look at.
They want us to take over Otrahonga. Okay. Suggested resolution. A mover, please. Move, Councillor Kirk. Secondly, Councillor Johnson. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 14, draft joint management agreement with Whakaaro Settlement Trust. It's a supplementary paper.
Mr. Chairman, I'll probably
Mr. Green?
So,
Mr. Goldsbury, or
you've had discussions with us regarding this through a workshop, and you'll remember at that stage, we've been working on this joint management agreement with the other councils and Okawa for some time. You remember at the workshop there was one issue which was outstanding, which was around the council's ability to not accept recommendations from the new joint or the proposed joint governance group that was being proposed. Some alternative wording has been agreed with Raukawa trustees, and I understand as of about an hour ago today, Raukawa have agreed to those words. So those words make it really explicit that the council isn't bound by any recommendations that may come from that governance group. That position has been reached through a number of discussions at officer level, but also a meeting of most of the governance group in Mangakino last week, with Raukawa's chair and chair of this committee. So there was a general level of comfort at that stage that should those words be included, the concerns that we had at that point would be reduced.
Councillor Williams?
Yes, Mr. Green, we had a final draft up and ready to sign with the Te Aroha River Iwi Trust prior to 92 Whaitoa wanting also to have some involvement in that. Is this suggested resolution consistent with what's in the final draft of our agreement with respect to governance issues of the Taupo District Council, or sorry, plan variation or reviews of the district plan? Is that consistent with what we agreed with Te Aroha River Iwi Trust?
I'd say it's not inconsistent. So the same issue doesn't repeat itself at this stage in that draft documentation, and that they have a slightly different process and slightly different governance arrangement. So it's certainly not inconsistent. I think it's fair to say, and one of our concerns as officers with the Raukawa words were that the same would be repeated through Tarata and through Te Whaitoa. So we had to make sure that it was that it was pretty clear and concise in terms of this one, and we're confident that this does that.
Through the Chair, I have to express some real concern about how much these JMAs are costing the councils in the region with along the Waikato River with respect to time and resources. I understand that Waikato Regional Council's put aside $1 million to put to do their joint management agreements for the Waikato River. And I can just see now the time is running away on us with the three parties that we have to form the JMOs. And I'm just like to put out there, is there not some way that all the parties can come together with some consensus and then bring out a master document and then have them insert their own particular wishes into that master document rather than have all these separate negotiations which are taking an enormous amount of time and resources from what I've observed.
To Mr. Chair, they are slightly different, and that's because they're slightly different in terms of their setup and what each area are wanting. The bones are the same, and so the bones are replaced, but like anything, when you go into a negotiation, you go into it with an open mind in terms of what both parties want to get out of that relationship.
There's no option anyway, though, is there?
There's no option but to enter into an agreement. There is an option as to what you put into that agreement.
Whakaaro have been excellent to deal with and hasn't cost much to come up with this joint agreement. I think the rest of the committee would agree. Councillor Hickling?
Yeah. Okay, if I could just, so the resolution on page 7, or marked 14/6, is not the resolution we want you to consider. Did you get this one handed out around? Yeah. So could you cross out number 2 and concentrate on number 1? I'm sorry, sir.
I'm prepared to move the suggested resolution number 1, Your Worship.
I'll second it.
Okay, and I'll just read that resolution so we understand that Council adopts the draft joint management agreement between the Whakaaro Settlement Trust and Taupo District Council, subject to the amendment of Clause 5(10) to include the additional words, and its decision-making cannot bind the parties. Moved by Councillor Hickling. Seconded by Councillor Downard. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay. Item number 15, Ms. Jakes. This is expensive policy for elected members. Now, this probably should be taken as read. I'm happy to open it up to you. It's the new remuneration issues for the next triennium. Will affect some of you, not all of us. Ms. Jakes, so anybody, we have workshopped, any questions from anybody for clarity or anything? I think once again, the incoming council will have the ability that we still had at the beginning of our triennium, where we divided the pool rather than,
No.
not anymore. Have I got that wrong?
It's already been set for next.
So the councillors that get in of the next term have been set by us, but we had to because that's the law.
Been set by the Remuneration Authority.
Okay, so
So this is about your incidental expenses as opposed to your salary.
Taxis, mileages.
Yep, that's correct. And it's based on their draft policy. The main changes are in relation to the communications area, basically.
Okay, so this is where Rob and I talked about iPads and things for next year and how you get reimbursed or not, etc., etc. Okay, vehicle allowances and that. So does anybody else have any more questions? I know you have workshopped it with Ms. Jakes. Councillor Hickling?
Yeah, I'd just like to have some clarification on 15(2) because it's certainly new to me, where you can claim $35 per hour for travel time. Could you just expand? Is that just one way, or is it that the whole travel time during the day that you travel to a meeting?
During the day that you travel to the meeting. So, for example, if you go to Hamilton, you'll be paid for 1 hour, basically. And if you come back, then you've got a second hour. But if you stay overnight, the first day you'd be.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else?
So anything over an hour per day, travel allowance kicks in.
So what if you went to Hamilton and back in one day? You just lose the first day and get paid for 3?
Yeah, well, that's my understanding. Yeah.
Whatever the time is, yes.
That only applies to councillors.
And I think in here, if I recall, community board members as well,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I meant to mean.
elected members.
So, if there's no more clarity needed around this, could we have a mover and a seconder, please, for the suggested resolution on the front page of item number 15? Councillor Johnson, Councillor Hickling, all those in favour, say aye. So then we go on to elected members' remuneration amendment.
So when we had the extraordinary vacancy earlier on in the year, the pool of money that councillors have was redivided, and the remuneration authority requires that to go through as a resolution. So this is the formal process to make that happen.
Okay, if there's no questions, I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder for that. Move, Councillor Johnson. Seconded, Councillor Downard. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. Number 17, council engagements for the month of September. Reading down them there, there's nobody applying to go for anything, so all we have to consider is meeting dates. Taupo Airport Authority will now be holding a meeting as of today's general conversation on the 9th of September at 10:30 at the airport. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It was going to be a workshop, it's now going to be a meeting. It'll be a public meeting, open to the public. So any other alterations or amendments? Audit and Risk Committee, Tuesday the 3rd. And the rest is, we've got the Zone 2 conference here in Taupo on the 12th and 13th. We'll be hosting that. We do have one more citizenship ceremony, Monday the 16th. Lake Taupo Protection Project Joint Committee, Thursday 19th. Council meeting last Tuesday of the month. Anything further?
Just, Your Worship, the TMAR group to have a presentation, if we could note that, for September, as they weren't able to make it.
So, and what's happening to our guests at the front door?
They're gone.
So they will be into September. So
We'll have
3
presentations in September.
Does one of them want to do like we did this morning and just do a workshop to us prior to lunch?
The other two presentations are DGLT and EGLT, so that's a formal presentation back to council.
All three in the open. Yep. Okay. Anything further? Nothing. Could I have a mover, please, that the information relating to the engagements for September be received? Move, Councillor Kirk. Second, Councillor Truman. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Agenda item number 18. We'll go around the table as members' reports. Councillor Henderson. Going backwards today.
Been to a number of meetings, but there's just one I wanted to mention, which was the catch-up management meeting for the Upper Waikato, which I attended with Councillor Williams last week. Very interesting. There's a lot of work going on with development of zone plans and so forth. But the reason I went along principally is I found out that our previous representative on that committee, Councillor Mincer, had attended, I believe, one previous meeting in the past 2.5 years. So I felt a bit of a need to go along and build a few bridges. And I think Councillor Williams and I did that successfully. And the other thing worth noting is with catchment management, Anne McLeod has now been appointed by Waikato Regional Council as the area manager, which is an extra resource above and beyond what they previously had on the ground here in Taupo. So just an update on that.
Councillor Henderson, Councillor Johnson.
I attended the Waipahi monthly board meeting and the Friends of the Museum AGM as a council rep.
Councillor Kirk.
I was an official counter at the National Breastfeeding Latch-On. We had the Trust Power Awards judging session, Emergency Management Committee. I chaired a Safe Kids New Zealand meeting, and we have a Junior Safety Expo happening at the Great Lakes Centre on the 6th and 7th of November. Attended the More FM Women in Business function, the Youth Employment Steering Group Committee meeting, the Lakes DHB Community Health Forum, and then I was given a tour of the redevelopment of Taupo Hospital by the manager, Julie Eilers, and it's really cool. I hope I never have to use it, but it's a good facility. And yesterday, I just went along to observe the Taupo Airport Authority meeting out of interest and found it quite informative.
Councillor Craig.
I've circulated my report from the NZAEP meeting. Can I just speak just a couple of items on that? Just to elaborate. I think the rest, one of it. Thank you, first of all, for letting me go on this. I benefited from it hugely. I felt like the old man of the events industry in New Zealand, and met lots of people from all sorts of areas. And I've come to the conclusion that the events industry in our whole nation is in pretty good hands, and it's being well financed, and there's a lot of people in our events industry that have got jobs overseas. And I just mentioned one down there about the 7th bullet point, Lara Middleditch in Kiwi, and she was responsible for the 70,000 volunteers and 11 million visitors at the London Olympics, and she gave a great presentation on the involvement in that. One of the things that does come up in the whole thing, when you talk about events, and we do it here in Taupo, let's say we talk about Ironman, we've got 1,000 eventees, if you like, participants. We've also got 1 point something people that come with these, and they're still visitors to our town, and we've got 2,000 people that volunteer. So the event is bigger than just the competitors. It goes to the supporters of the event and also the volunteers. And that's, I think we've got to always keep that in mind when we look at events in our sort of industry. On the local scene, I'm not trying to steal Nick Reeder's thunder here, but I think we're thriving. I've worked with Nick and the events team quite a bit. The events capital branding is still strong. They produced this booklet here that I should have got for you to put in your pigeonhole, but that is just a wonderful document on our events and what we're hoping to do and what we're hoping to attract. And there's plenty coming up in the next year or so for some of us that might be lucky enough to get voted on. So we are in good heart with the whole events industry. I've underlined the challenges in our events industry. And it's in tourism generally, that we do need to look at extending visitations instead of having 1 day offs, getting festivals and things like this. And events and festivals go together and filling our winter months. And it was great to see last weekend we had the Winterfest that was on at the same time as the National Duathlon Champs were out at the Motorsport Park. And then on the Sunday, I went along and dug holes for the living legends, Sir Colin Meads and all those people, and it was just a wonderful weekend to show that we can actually fill our winter weekends up. So any comments on that? The other attendances, of course, I go to the TMARG, the Taupo Road User Group meets again, and we're still trying to get the safer roads in our district to sort of get a better reputation. I was greatly involved in the 20th half marathon and been involved in every one of them, to be quite honest. With Barry and Kirsty, we had our last Mangakino meeting, and that was quite sad because we'll probably, might not all meet again, so that was good. And I just congratulate Kirsty on good chairmanship for the whole 3 years. She's done a wonderful job there. And of course, I've been to the usual cycling club and all that sort of stuff meetings over the last month. Thank you for listening. And
I've been to the Tuta Mahuta Trust meeting. I've been to the Sports Advisory Council meeting, and just on that Sports Advisory Council, pleased to announce that Contact Energy are sponsoring again the Swim Well program for Taupo, Mangakino and Turangi. So that's pretty huge for keeping our numbers up in all in those swimming pools and getting kids to swim. Another 100,000. And then I also attended the dog obedience opening of the new club rooms on Sunday. I went to the Merrill candidate bungee jump to celebrate Winterfest week, the night bungee, and I was the only one that jumped off. No one cut my rope, thank God. I also had the pleasure to go with Dominic up to Turangi-Tongariro, is it Marae, up in Maurawahia for the Waikato Tainui Environment Plan launch, and had a real great day. I got invited to have lunch with the King in there, and with a lot of the mayors and Tainui elders. So that was really good. And yeah, that's me.
Along with Councillor Downard, I attended the Citizens Advice Bureau AGM, and they had some celebrations of some outstanding community volunteers. Some of who have been volunteering for that organisation for 20 years, so that was quite something to celebrate. So 5 or 6 of them were given certification. Also, with Councillor Henderson, and as your council representative, your new council representative, I attended my second Upper Waikato liaison committee meeting in Pataru last Tuesday. We were specifically asked to form into working groups to give input into the zone plan in the afternoon. The morning was their usual business. I think, as I signalled to you, this committee, it's made up of land users, power companies, district councils, of course the regional council, Waikato Regional Council, and various scientists. And it is, I would like to signal to this council, it is a very important committee, I think, especially with regards to water purity, which is going to be, I think, a number one issue on an ongoing basis for our district. And I think we need to be proactive on that committee. Also, it was signalled to us that there is a real concern over river degradation. There's also a real concern over biodiversity in our district, and of course pest control that goes along with that, and then also erosion problems, which are hand in hand, I guess, with our type of landform. So what's been signalled is that on an ongoing basis, farmers and landowners who may, or councils for that matter, may have activities that impact on others in their immediate vicinity will have to, most probably will have to be paying. So there are some issues, and so I would signal to let's get somebody on there next Trainium who's active. And like Councillor Henderson, I was quite ashamed, and there was comments made from those members that the Taupo District Council had not been represented for 2.5 years. The member that we nominated to go to that had attended only one meeting out of all the monthly meetings that have taken place. So I guess when I look around this table at all our hard-working councillors and the amount of work that you all do, I find that quite disappointing.
No, I don't have anything especially to report. I have attended a number of local Turangi things, but nothing special that needs to come to Council's attention from that.
Council Chairman.
Yep, so I went to the Tirohanga Sports and Settlers Association meeting, their monthly meeting, and also to the Mangakino, Enterprise Mangakino had their first meeting where they tried to get a business after 5 group happening. So that was a really big turnout for Mangakino. There were lots of businesses, so that was the first one. So hopefully that's going to continue. So that was in support of EGLT, and yeah, a little bit of representation there from DGLT as well. So that's great. So hopefully that will continue to build.
Attended the Sports Advisory Council and also the Tuta-Mahuta Reserve Trust. I also attended the annual general meeting of the Taupo Health, I think it's the Health Trust, and they have just donated $750,000 towards some of the refurbishment of the new Taupo Hospital. There is still a shortfall because with the seismic upgrade, it's about 1.5 million, so there's still a shortfall of about 750, I think. The shortfall really is that there's also no contingency for the landscaping of the hospital, and probably the what I would class as the internal decorations of the corridors and such like, so some artwork or whatever. I don't know whether people's visited the Rotorua Hospital recently, but some of certainly the new part of the Rotorua Hospital, it's just, it's nice and relaxing when you walk in. It's a totally new sort of environment, and I think perhaps, dare I say it, the new council might be second to try and put some artwork or do something to probably help our local hospital. I think it's a good community thing. We've managed to establish and keep the hospital in Taupo, because at one stage that's why the health trust was set up originally, was to keep the hospital in Taupo. And
just as an idea, there's a hell of a lot of gifts given from mayors to mayors over the last 20
years. That's what I'm thinking.
They're all sitting up in the archives.
Yeah.
Every time we get given something, if we take it home, the devil we do, the devil we don't. Everything's gone to archives, and I would challenge the new council to go and have a look what's in there, because there's some lovely stuff in there.
And that's all I'm saying. We don't have to purchase anything.
No.
I'm sure we've got something that would be a good gift.
Lots of stuff.
In Ngāti Tūwhare Tour would have too in their archives. They'd have stuff that I'm sure they'd love to be displayed.
You'd be amazed what's in our archives, mate. Councillor Cook.
Just to follow up from the DHB forum last week, two wharetoa have been engaged with by the Lakes DHB and Julie Islands, and they are currently working on artwork from that aspect. I'm sure Julie would love to hear from the mayor or someone with that offer. It would be great.
I'm happy for them to rifle through, because there's a lot of stuff in there, Mr. Williams, as you know, including pictures of the Queen. Okay, there's a suggested resolution that reports from members be received. Mover, please. Move, Councillor Downard. Seconded, Councillor Williams. All in favour? Aye. I now need a mover, please, to exclude public, a resolution to exclude general members of the public, please, for the reasons listed on the page. What are you doing? We're changing it? Okay. You want to have a quick water stop?
Yeah, just
5 minutes?